They are absolutely everywhere, but we can't see them. And the ways they travel are, well, pretty surprising sometimes. I'm talking about pathogens, all those microscopic viruses, bacteria, and fungi that can make us really, really sick. So today, we're going to take a look at how these tiny invaders actually get into our bodies. Think about it. We've all gotten bug bites, right? But have you ever really stopped to think about what's happening in that tiny moment? It's so much more than just an itchy bump on your arm. For some of the smallest creatures on Earth, a bite is basically a super efficient delivery system for some pretty dangerous stuff. So, let's meet two of the most well-known culprits on the planet, the mosquito and the tick. You might think of them as just a summer annoyance, but they're way more than that. They're like these little taxis for diseases, carrying some of the most serious illnesses we know of. Let's kick things off with the mosquito. I mean, we all know them, we all hate them. But get this, they're actually the deadliest animal in the entire world, all because of the host of viruses they carry that cause so much sickness and death globally. Okay, here are three of the big ones we're going to dive into. You've got West Nile, which in rare cases can cause serious neurological problems. Then there's chikungunya, which is infamous for its just agonizing joint pain. And finally, dengue, which has earned the terrifying nickname break-bone fever. And trust me, it lives up to the name. So first up is West Nile. It's the most common mosquito-borne disease right here in the mainland US. But the wild thing is, a full 80% of people who get infected, they never even feel a thing. The virus usually just cycles between birds and mosquitoes. We humans are what scientists call dead-end hosts. We can get sick from it, sure, but we can't pass it back to another mosquito. Now, chikungunya, this one is all about the pain. It hits you with a sudden fever and just unbelievably severe joint pain. And for some people, the really unlucky ones, that pain can stick around for months or even years after the infection is gone. And because there's no vaccine, the only real defense is getting rid of those mosquitoes, which means dumping out any standing water you see. And then you have dengue. This map really shows you just how widespread it is. It absolutely thrives in tropical and subtropical climates, which puts literally billions of people at risk. You can see the hot spots there in red and purple. It's a huge public health issue all across South America, Southeast Asia, and Africa. So why break-bone fever? Well, it's named for the insane intensity of the muscle and joint pain. But here's the really dangerous part about dengue. Getting it once doesn't make you safe. In fact, it's the opposite. If you get infected a second time with a different strain of the virus, your body can go into overdrive, leading to a much more severe, life-threatening condition with things like internal bleeding and shock. All right, so we've looked up in the air, now let's look down into the tall grass. Our next vector is the tick, another tiny creature that packs a seriously big punch when it comes to transmitting disease. When it comes to ticks, we're going to focus on two big ones, Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. They're both bacterial infections, and they have some things in common, but you can tell them apart by their rashes and long-term symptoms. Lyme is famous for that bullseye rash, while Rocky Mountain spotted fever gives you a spotted rash that usually starts on your wrists and ankles. And here it is. This is the classic calling card of Lyme disease. On the left, you see that unmistakable bullseye rash. And on the right, that's the actual culprit, the corkscrew-shaped bacteria called Borrelia burgdorferi. If you are ever out in the woods and see a rash like this on you later, that is your signal to go see a doctor. Pronto. So how do they get away with this? How do they latch on for so long? Well, here's a kind of creepy but fascinating fact. Tick saliva actually has anesthetic properties. It numbs your skin so you don't even feel the bite. This allows them to just hang out and feed for days without you ever knowing they're there. And that is why checking your body for ticks after being outside is so, so important. Okay, get ready for one of the absolute weirdest things in all of infectious disease. This sounds completely made up, like something out of a sci-fi movie. But can a simple tick bite make you allergic to red meat? The answer is incredibly yes. It's called alpha-gal syndrome. Here's what happens. Certain types of ticks can inject a sugar molecule called alpha-gal into your blood when they bite you. Your immune system can then flag this molecule as an invader. The problem is that same molecule is also found in red meat like beef and pork. So the next time you eat a burger, your body freaks out and suddenly you have a full-blown food allergy, all from one tiny tick. So we've talked about pathogens that get you with a bite, but now we have to shift gears to a group of viruses that are thankfully very rare, but are absolutely terrifyingly lethal. They don't need a bug to travel. They spread through direct contact. I'm talking about the hemorrhagic fever viruses. This picture really says it all, doesn't it? The sheer amount of personal protective equipment, the PPE, that these healthcare workers need to wear just to treat a patient, it tells you everything you need to know about how dangerous and how infectious these viruses are. And the numbers, they're just staggering. Marburg virus has an average fatality rate of 50%, so a coin flip. But the Zaire strain of Ebola, that can have a fatality rate of up to 90%. I mean, that is one of the deadliest viruses we have ever encountered. So how exactly do these viruses spread? The key thing to understand is that it's all about direct contact with the bodily fluids of someone or an animal who's infected. Think blood, vomit, things like that. What's absolutely crucial to remember is that these viruses are not airborne. You can't get it just by being in the same room. That's why strict quarantine and hygiene are the only ways to stop an outbreak. So where do these things even come from? Well, this diagram shows what we call a spillover event. A virus like Marburg lives naturally in an animal reservoir, in this case, Egyptian fruit bats. From there, the virus can jump to another animal, like a monkey, and then finally it can jump to humans who come into contact with that infected animal. And that's how a terrifying outbreak can begin. All right, for our last section, let's talk about a totally different kind of invader. It's not a virus, it's not a bacteria, it's a fungus. And the thing about these pathogens is that a lot of them are already living on us and inside of us, just waiting for an opportunity. This is a perfect example. A yeast called Candida albicans is a totally normal part of the collection of microbes in the gut and mouth for most healthy adults. But if a person's immune system gets weakened for some reason, this yeast can seize the opportunity to grow out of control, causing infections like oral thrush, which you see here. It's a textbook opportunistic pathogen. But lately, a much scarier cousin has shown up on the scene, Candida auris. This fungus is becoming a really serious problem, especially in hospitals and nursing homes. It can cause dangerous bloodstream infections, but the most alarming part is that it's often resistant to multiple antifungal drugs, which makes it incredibly difficult to get rid of. Okay, so after hearing about all of these pretty scary invaders, you're probably wondering, what can I actually do about it? Well, the good news is, for a lot of these pathogens, a few simple practical steps can make a huge difference in your risk. So let's go through the playbook. It really boils down to these 5 key things. 1. Use insect repellent. It works. 2. Get rid of any standing water around your house where mosquitoes can breed. 3. Every time you're outdoors, check yourself, your clothes, and your pets for ticks. 4. If you find a tick, get it off fast. Remember, it usually has to be attached for more than a day to transmit Lyme disease. And 5, good old-fashioned safe hygiene is still your #1 weapon against pathogens that spread through contact. And this brings us to one final big question. Some scientists think that new, scary fungi like Candida auris might have emerged in the first place because they adapted to survive in a warmer world. And that leaves us with a pretty sobering thought. As our planet continues to change, what other invisible invaders are out there, just waiting for their moment?